The transmission hit every satellite on Earth at once. It wasn't a message, it was a warning. Across every screen, every device, every skyborne channel, the same image repeated. A monolithic warship hanging above the Martian orbit, its silhouette blotting out stars. The voice that followed was cold, synthetic, and without the slightest trace of hesitation. "This is the Galactic Dominion. You are trespassing in a quarantined sector. Earth's growth is unauthorized. Your expansion is over." At first, most people laughed. Another prank, some viral marketing stunt, but the laughter faded fast. 24 hours later, the International Space Station was gone. Debris rained into the upper atmosphere like confetti from hell. The moon base, gone. And the Mars colony? Not even radio silence, just static. The world snapped to attention. For once, the UN, NATO, Russia, China, and even countries that hadn't spoken in decades all had the same agenda: survival. There were no debates, no negotiations, and Earth's retaliation began not with missiles, but with one man. Colonel Mason Roard stood at the heart of the Unified Defense Command. His face was hard from decades of battle, the skin around his eyes weathered like old leather. He wasn't the diplomatic type. His orders were simple. We strike back, not for victory, for vengeance. The old world government still wanted peace talks, stalling behind politics and fear, but humanity had changed. We weren't just tribes and borders anymore. We'd seen extinction coming once, through our own arrogance, climate collapse, and war, and somehow we clawed back from the brink. We'd rebuilt ourselves from ruin. And now, they wanted to wipe us out again? Not this time. The Dominion didn't expect resistance. That was their mistake. They'd studied us like we were insects, primitive, territorial, emotional. What they didn't understand is that our chaos is what made us dangerous. They thought we'd kneel. Instead, we detonated Earth's orbital beacons, blinding their scanners. We sacrificed every remaining spy satellite just to jam their sensors for 5 minutes. That's all Mason needed. While the diplomats begged for mercy, the silent armada launched from Antarctica, a fleet nobody outside the black budget labs even knew existed. 15 ships, fusion-driven, lined with railguns and experimental weaponry. Their goal wasn't to win a war, it was to send a message. You may be the Empire, but we're humanity, and we don't die quietly. When the first Dominion cruiser entered low Earth orbit, it didn't bother with shields. Why would it? It was 2 miles long, made from alien alloys that laughed at nuclear weapons. Its AI predicted full planetary compliance in under a week. Then the first human attack hit. Not from space, from the ground. In an old Siberian facility, an abandoned Cold War relic, a high-energy particle cannon came online. It wasn't even finished, but it worked. The beam punched straight through the cruiser's belly, melted its core, and left a trail of falling fire across 5 continents. The world watched it fall like a dying god. Mason didn't cheer. He knew what came next. That wasn't a win. That was an invitation. And sure enough, the sky opened the next morning. 7 more cruisers entered Earth space. This wasn't a warning anymore. This was war. Before the first true battle began, Mason recorded one last message. It wasn't meant for allies. It was sent directly to the Empire's command ship, and he made sure the entire galaxy could hear it. You think we're weak because we fight each other, but you missed the point. We're the most dangerous species you'll ever meet, not because we conquer, but because when backed into a corner, we burn everything. You wanted our surrender. Here's our answer. Then he ended the message with Earth's final fallback protocol, a global detonation sequence tied to our deepest vaults. If we fall, Earth burns. Nothing left to conquer. No resources. No victory. Just ash. The ultimatum was set, and humanity was ready to back it up. The Dominion didn't flinch. The moment Mason's transmission echoed across the galaxy, the Empire responded, not with words, not with negotiation, but with war. 7 cruisers in formation entered Earth's upper orbit, like silent judges surrounding a condemned criminal. Their hulls were obsidian black, etched with ancient markings in a language no one had deciphered. Their weapons remained cold, for now, but everyone on the ground knew it was only a matter of time. Colonel Mason Roard stood in the dim-lit control room of the Arctic Command bunker, 30 meters below the ice shelf. The air was dry, metallic. The weight of 1,000 decisions pressed on his back like the armor he no longer wore. A young analyst, barely out of training, broke the silence. "Sir, they're scanning every major city." Mason didn't even turn to look. "They're cataloging targets. They're planning a blitz. Total decapitation strike. Should we power the orbital mines?" Mason's jaw tensed. "Not yet. Let them think we're panicking. We wait until they commit." He didn't believe in luck. He believed in leverage, and desperation gave humanity both. Across the globe, silence gave way to fear. In Tokyo, sirens howled as civilians were ushered underground. In London, the Queen was escorted into a nuclear-hardened vault beneath the Thames. In New York, chaos reigned. People were rioting in the streets, looting stores, burning cars, desperation turning them into their worst selves. Everyone wanted to survive, but no one knew how. Then came the first strike. It wasn't on a city, it was on a mountain. Mount Elbert, Colorado, home to what the Dominion assumed was a communications outpost. In reality, it was a decoy, an electromagnetic sponge built to resemble a central intelligence hub. The moment the first alien plasma bolt hit, the mountain exploded, not from the blast, but from the fail-safe rigged beneath it. A 10-kiloton hydrogen warhead turned rock into vapor. The Dominion ship above it was unharmed, barely scratched, but the message was clear. Earth wasn't going to be an easy target. Mason stepped into the private comms chamber. Just him, the console, and a direct uplink to Earth's most ruthless mind, Director Novak. No one knew his first name. No one even knew his face. But he ran the Shadow Division, projects that made conspiracy theories look like children's bedtime stories, weapons buried in sea trenches, AI networks that mimicked alien language patterns, and black labs where scientists were given permission to fail. Violently. The screen flickered. A blank silhouette answered. "I told you this would happen," Novak's voice rasped. "They don't bluff, and neither should we." Mason didn't blink. "We have one shot to make them bleed. I'm authorizing Operation Iron Fist." A pause. "You're sure?" "They're not negotiating. They're testing us. If we don't break their jaw now, they'll never take us seriously." Another pause, then a soft, mechanical click. "Approved. We'll begin transmission of the Ghost Fleet in 20 minutes. You'll get one chance." They weren't real ships, not in the traditional sense. The Ghost Fleet was a prototype project, holographic vessels projected from low-orbit satellites, indistinguishable from the real thing. Cloaked in radiation signatures and electromagnetic pulses, they mimicked movement, weapon systems, and even heat traces. Their only purpose was deception. To an enemy watching from orbit, it would look like Earth had 23 warships ready to fire. In reality, we had 4. But when the Ghost Fleet activated, it worked. The Dominion paused. Scanners flickered. Their ships adjusted position. To the Empire's AI-driven minds, the data didn't add up. Primitive species weren't supposed to possess cloaking tech or orbital launch readiness of this scale. And in war, Hesitation is the first wound. Mason saw the pause on the orbital feed. Now, he growled. Earth's only 4 real warships launched from underground bays hidden in the Andes Mountains. They didn't look impressive, more like giant metal bricks welded together with desperation and rage. But what they lacked in elegance, they made up for in firepower. Each one carried plasma-laced kinetic warheads, chunks of tungsten accelerated to near light speed, wrapped in ion fields to pierce enemy shielding. The ships didn't aim to survive. They aimed to take at least one Dominion cruiser with them. The first contact. The lead Earth vessel, Fury Dawn, opened fire at close range. Its warhead sliced through the vacuum, tearing toward the nearest alien ship with a silent scream. The Dominion's AI tried to adjust. Shields realigned. Lasers pulsed out, trying to intercept. They were too slow. The warhead collided. The Dominion cruiser didn't explode. It disintegrated, a chain reaction of compressed heat and kinetic trauma, reducing the 2-mile-long ship to glowing debris in less than 3 seconds. Humanity had scored a kill. The first alien blood had been drawn. Mason watched the data stream flood in. No one in the control room cheered. No one clapped. Because everyone knew what would come next. Retaliation. The sky lit up. The remaining 6 Dominion cruisers activated their primary weapon systems. Each beam was equivalent to 10 Hiroshima bombs in one pulse, designed to cauterize cities, vaporize resistance, and erase civilizations. They didn't aim for military targets. They aimed for population centers. New Delhi, São Paulo, Johannesburg, Dallas. Every major Earth city had less than 2 minutes to live. But Mason wasn't done. Activate last horizon. A technician turned to him, eyes wide. That's a one-way code. I know. But do it. The room fell into a stunned silence. Last horizon wasn't a missile or a fleet. It was a man. Dr. Ryan Tavik was the kind of scientist you don't invite to conferences. Brilliant, volatile, and reckless. He'd vanished from public view 10 years ago after his AI network, WraithNet, had gained temporary self-awareness and nearly started World War IV. He'd been buried in an underground lab since then. And now, he was Earth's last hope. The Last Horizon Protocol was his design, a remote link into the Dominion systems, developed by harvesting the AI fragments left behind from their earlier probes. It was never finished. Too unstable, too unpredictable. But it could work. Within 30 seconds, Tavik was online from his lab. His face appeared on the bunker's main screen, half lit by flickering monitors and cigarette smoke. His voice was raspy from years of isolation. You finally need the freak, huh? Mason didn't smile. We're out of options. Tavik cracked his knuckles. Good, let's make history. The Dominion's beams fired. At the same time, Tavik's worm infiltrated their targeting systems. What followed wasn't a miracle. It was a glitch, a perfectly timed hiccup in a system that wasn't supposed to have weaknesses. The first beam missed São Paulo by 20 miles and hit open ocean. The second flickered and shut down mid-charge. The third struck the mountains near Johannesburg, causing devastation but sparing millions. And the fourth? It never fired. Instead, the Dominion cruiser's internal systems went haywire. Its engines reversed polarity, causing the ship to twist in space like a wounded animal. It collided with another cruiser, and both ships spiraled into Earth's atmosphere. Mason watched them fall. The sky turned into fire. 2 Dominion cruisers. Down. And Earth was still breathing. But victories came with a price. The feedback from the hack fried half of Tavik's brain. He died seconds after the transmission ended, a smile still etched into his face. The other 2 warships, Iron Will and Red Echo, were destroyed by returning fire, their remains drifting in the upper atmosphere like forgotten heroes. And the Dominion? They didn't retreat. They adapted. Their next move was worse than any orbital strike. They sent ground troops. 5 Dominion drop pods landed across the globe, monolithic ovals of obsidian that drilled themselves into the crust and released shockwaves as they opened. Out stepped beings not made for diplomacy. 7-foot monsters of armor and precision, with 4 arms, glowing blue skin, and neural-linked rifles that could melt through tanks. They didn't speak. They exterminated. In Cairo, a battalion of Earth soldiers was annihilated in under 3 minutes. In Berlin, the Reichsstadt crumbled again as alien weapons disintegrated steel and bone alike. But in Detroit, something different happened. They were met by civilians, armed, angry, and too stubborn to die. It started with one man, an ex-steelworker named Tom Granger. No military training, no rank, just a 12-gauge shotgun and a death wish. He and 15 others ambushed the Dominion patrol near a highway overpass, using car batteries wired to explosives and homemade EMPs. They took down 2 soldiers, captured 1, and then broadcasted their victory across every channel on Earth. A message to the world. They bleed. They die. They're not gods. They're just the next empire thinking will bow. Well, Earth don't bow. Not today. And for the first time since the war began, hope took root. Not from the government, not from the military, but from the people, from the broken, the stubborn, the furious, from humanity. They called it the Detroit Stand, not because it was planned or strategic, but because it was the first time Earth's resistance came from the people, not from orders. Granger and his ragtag crew became instant legends. The video of him holding a Dominion rifle, bloodied but alive, spread across the globe like fire on dry brush. Mason watched the footage from the Arctic command room. The bunker, once cold and silent, was now alive with chatter. Generals debated tactics, analysts plotted alien movements, but Mason ignored them all. He watched Granger walk over the smoldering body of an alien soldier, pump his shotgun, and mutter something under his breath. The audio was distorted, but Mason knew what he said. "We don't get conquered. Not by them. Not by anyone." It wasn't strategy. It was defiance. That's what scared the Dominion. In orbit, only 4 of the original 7 cruisers remained. The 2 that had collided still hadn't been recovered, burning in Earth's gravity like cosmic wreckage. And the one they lost to Fury Dawn's suicide run had left a permanent scar in Dominion memory banks. Their response was swift. They deployed what humanity would later call the Reapers, black armored units of cybernetic enforcers that didn't bleed, didn't sleep, and didn't feel. Unlike the organic infantry that had landed in Cairo, Berlin, and Chicago, the Reapers weren't soldiers. They were exterminators, and their mission was simple: wipe out organized resistance. Target leaders. End the human spirit. Their first target wasn't a city. It was Granger. Tom Granger didn't sleep for 2 days after the stand. Reporters tried to track him down, but he stayed on the move, hopping between gutted houses and subway tunnels. He knew the aliens weren't just angry. They were calculating. And if they had AI as advanced as Earth believed, then his face, voice, gait, heat signature, all of it, was already flagged. He wasn't wrong. On the 3rd night, while helping escort survivors to a hidden shelter in the ruins of an old library, Granger heard the sound. Quiet at first. A high-pitched buzz, unnatural and electronic, like a swarm of hornets cloaked in metal. Then came the flash. A Dominion Reaper dropped from the sky, slammed into the pavement, and stood up without a sound. 7 feet tall, all black, no face. No visible weapons, just humming energy and death. Granger's shotgun was already up. He fired. The slug bounced off the Reaper's armor like a pebble on steel. The Reaper moved, too fast. It closed the gap in seconds, slicing through a nearby man with an energy blade so clean his body didn't realize it was dead until it fell apart. Granger grabbed a lead pipe and ran. Not to fight, but to draw it away from the civilians. Through alleyways, under scaffolding, over abandoned cars. It chased him with precision, cutting down obstacles in its path. He was running out of options. Then he found the wreckage of a Dominion troop transport, burned out from the last human ambush. Inside, a plasma charge still flickered. Granger didn't think. He just dove, dragging the charge out, wrapping it in his coat, and climbing atop the transport. The Reaper was 10 feet away. He clicked the charge. "Here's your goddamn extermination." The explosion lit up the ruins like a second sun. When the dust settled, there was nothing left of the Reaper. Granger lost 2 fingers and half his hearing, but he lived. Again. The next video showed him flipping the middle finger at a drone overhead, shouting through bloodied lips, "You want to end the human spirit? Then you better bring more than metal toys and empty threats. We're just getting warmed up." Back in orbit, the Dominion finally changed tactics. They stopped trying to conquer Earth. Now they were trying to break it. They released the spectral waves, satellite-sized emitters that bathed the surface in psychological warfare frequencies. Frequencies designed to amplify fear, rage, hopelessness. It didn't kill people. It made them kill each other. In the first 12 hours, suicides tripled. Families turned on each other. Soldiers disobeyed orders. Some cities burned not from alien fire, but from humans turning feral under the waves. And still, Earth endured. Because where fear spread, so did defiance. Every rebel radio station, every underground signal, every pirate broadcast started playing one thing over and over, Granger's voice. "We don't get conquered. Not by them. Not by anyone." That phrase became a mantra, a tattoo, a rallying cry. Mason saw it etched into soldiers' helmets, spray-painted on walls. Even kids were carving it into the dirt. He knew then, this wasn't a war about weapons anymore. It was a war of will. But the Dominion had one last card to play. They called it Judgment Spear, a superweapon the size of a continent, slowly moving from deep space. It wasn't fast, but it was coming, and when it arrived, Earth would be over. It didn't fire missiles. It bent gravity. The theory was that it could collapse an entire planet's crust in one calculated strike, turning Earth into a fractured wasteland in under 2 minutes. Humanity had 3 days before it entered firing range. Mason met with the Shadow Division, the remaining generals, and every top strategist Earth had left. "We can't stop that thing with ships," said General Orlova. "We don't need to stop it," Mason replied. "We need to board it." Silence. Someone laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. The mission was called Ash Hammer. One last shot to punch Earth's pain into the heart of the Empire. 4 stealth transports, 12 men each. Their goal? Infiltrate the Judgment Spear. Set off a zero-mass imploder inside its core. The catch? The imploder had to be triggered manually. Whoever went in wasn't coming back. Mason already knew he'd be on that team. He didn't tell anyone, not even his second-in-command. He just signed the orders, packed his gear, and headed for the launch site in Kazakhstan. At 59 years old, with knees that cracked and lungs that burned from shrapnel scarring, he was no longer the strongest man in the room. But he was the angriest, and that made him more dangerous than ever. The transports launched at night. No media, no fanfare. Just 4 black ships disappearing into the stars. They rode the shadow of Earth's magnetic field, ducking past Dominion scans, slipping through gaps in their sensors opened by Tavik's dying code. It wasn't perfect. One ship got caught, shredded in seconds by Dominion lasers. But 3 made it. They latched onto the Judgment Spear like ticks. Mason's heart pounded as he and his squad drilled into the hull. Every sound, every creak felt like death. They had no idea what was inside, no map, no guide, just guts and explosives. What they found was worse than expected, not just a weapon, a hive, thousands of Dominion larvae, suspended in tanks, growing, multiplying. The Judgment Spear wasn't just a weapon, it was a cedar, a mobile birthing ground for future invasions. Mason stared at the pulsing blue liquid surrounding the alien embryos and felt something primal awaken in his chest. "They weren't just here to destroy us," he whispered. "They were here to replace us." He radioed Earth. "This is Roard, confirming target. Cedar confirmed, initiating Ash Hammer." "Copy. Roard. Be advised, once detonation begins, there's no recall." "Understood." He turned to his men. "You can leave. You've earned that much. I'll finish it." But none of them moved. "Sir," said one soldier, barely more than a kid, "you die, we all die. Might as well make it worth something." They smiled. No tears. Just resolve. The charge was set near the gravity core, a zero-mass imploder designed to collapse itself into a singularity, dragging everything around it into oblivion. As Mason keyed in the final code, he sent one last transmission. "To the people of Earth, this isn't the end. We may die here, but we don't die defeated. You carry the fire now. Burn them, burn all of them. For every city, for every life, for humanity." Then he closed his eyes and pressed the trigger. From Earth, they saw it, a blinding light. Then a ripple of black, like the stars themselves being swallowed. The Judgment Spear twisted inward, crumpled into itself, then vanished into nothing. The remaining Dominion ships went dark, their command link severed, their empire shaken, and Earth? Still here, still breathing, still angry. The stars were quiet. For the first time in weeks, no Dominion warships hovered in orbit, no blinding beams scorched cities, no Reapers patrolled the ruins of Earth's streets. The Judgment Spear, the Empire's ultimate weapon, was gone, devoured by the singularity Mason Roard and his team ignited inside its heart. The news hit like thunder. Around the world, people stopped running, they stopped hiding, they climbed out of sewers, bunkers, and burned-out shelters and stared at the sky like they were seeing it for the first time. "We're still here. We made it." But victory didn't bring peace, because peace had a price, and humanity hadn't paid it in full. Director Novak sat alone in a concrete bunker somewhere beneath the Mojave Desert. No cameras, no generals, just him, 2 hollow screens, and a cup of black coffee gone cold. He watched the Dominion ships tumble out of sync. The Empire's AI command net had fractured with the destruction of the Spear. Thousands of automated systems failed, leaving their soldiers blind, their ships drifting, their communications silent. Earth had effectively lobotomized the Empire's offensive brain. But Novak didn't smile. He knew better. Mason's sacrifice had bought time, but not safety. The Empire wasn't dead. It was wounded. And a wounded Empire didn't retreat. It regrouped. In low orbit, 2 Dominion cruisers remained partially operational. Their engines were offline, shields weak, but their data cores still intact. And one of them, designation Zekra 7, held a live overseer, a biological command unit, the closest thing the Empire had to a general. When the Earth resistance learned about it, debate sparked immediately. We should destroy it. We should study it. We should keep it alive, use it as leverage. But the man who made the final decision wasn't a general. It was Tom Granger. He hadn't asked for power. He hadn't wanted it. But the world listened to him now, not because he held rank, but because he bled with them. When he spoke, people moved, and Granger's decision was simple. Bring it down. The operation to retrieve the Overseer was led by a multinational elite squad codenamed Black Sun, composed of the best Earth had left, veterans of the orbital battles, survivors of the Cairo massacre, even a few civilians who'd earned their place in blood and grit. The shuttle launched from an abandoned oil rig converted into a makeshift launch pad. Granger watched it rise into the atmosphere, fists clenched at his sides. He didn't trust politicians. He barely trusted Earth's fractured leadership. But he trusted the men and women on that ship. He just wasn't sure he trusted what they'd find. Zekra 7 wasn't just a ship. It was a temple. The moment Black Sun breached its hull, they felt it. Not in their ears, in their skulls. A deep, humming vibration, like something ancient was thinking inside the walls. The corridors were dark, pulsing with a sick blue light. Organic wires ran through the floor like veins. The air smelled sterile, but behind it was a trace of rot. They moved room by room, sweeping, clearing, covering angles. The bodies of Dominion soldiers floated in zero gravity, some half melded into the walls, their systems fried when the AI network collapsed. Then they reached the command core and saw it. The Overseer, tall, slender, wrapped in a cloak of woven metal and silk. Its face was a mask of light and data streams, constantly shifting symbols across its surface like living code. It didn't resist. It just watched them. When they aimed their rifles, it raised one hand, 3 fingers, not 5, and spoke. Not in sound, in thought. "You should have accepted extinction." Private Harlow screamed. Blood poured from his nose. He fired his rifle. The Overseer collapsed. Alive, but weakened. They sealed it in a containment chamber, sedated its neural link with the tech Tavik died creating. Then they brought it to Earth. It was Granger's idea to interrogate it publicly, broadcast it to the world. People died in the dark. Let them hear the truth in the light. The interrogation chamber was built in what used to be the Moscow Opera House, converted into a military stronghold after the orbital strikes leveled half the city. The seats were gone. The stage became a war room. The Overseer's containment unit sat dead center. Granger stepped forward. No generals, no politics, just him and the creature that led the Empire's slaughter. "You speak English?" The Overseer's mask flickered. "I speak understanding." "Then you understand this. You lost." Silence. Then, "You have not won. You have delayed the inevitable. We are older than your oceans, stronger than your gravity. Then why are you in a cage?" The Overseer didn't answer. Granger leaned in. What was the judgment spear really meant for? To sterilize you, erase your world, prepare it for cultivation. Cultivation for what? For the next evolution. Your species is wild data, unclean, unorganized, dangerous. Granger's voice dropped. "We call it freedom. We call it chaos. You came to tame us. We came to correct you. And you failed. We haven't even begun." Then the Overseer said something that turned every soldier in the room cold. "We were one seed, one fleet, a test. Now the galaxy will know Earth's fire, and they will come, not to conquer, to purge." That night, Granger met with what remained of Earth's leadership, what people were now calling the Iron Council. Leaders who'd actually fought, not hidden behind desks. They sat around a steel table in an underground vault, deep beneath the wreckage of Geneva. No suits, no press, no ceremonies, just the raw question hanging in the air. "What do we do next?" Granger answered first. "We don't wait for them to come again. We go to them." Some scoffed, some nodded. But he wasn't finished. "We hit them first, hard, fast. Burn every relay station, every scout base, every damn map that points in our direction. We make Earth the last place in the galaxy anyone wants to find." Director Novak, speaking via holo, finally broke his silence. "You're proposing the one thing we swore we'd never do? You're talking about a human offensive?" Granger didn't flinch. "I'm talking about survival." The next 3 weeks changed everything. The overseer was interrogated daily. Every word it spoke was analyzed, translated, and mapped. Earth's scientists cracked partial access to the Dominion star charts. We learned they didn't rule the galaxy. They policed it, which meant Earth wasn't fighting one empire. It was defying a galactic order. And in doing so, it had made enemies everywhere. But it also made one thing very clear. We'd already won the first war. Now we were in a new one, a crusade. The first Earth-built starship, Wrath 1, was completed in a South African hangar, forged from Dominion wreckage and human ingenuity. Fusion-powered, cloaked. Built for infiltration and annihilation. Its crew, volunteers only. Granger was the first name on the list. But before he left, he made one last visit to a makeshift memorial built atop the rubble of what used to be Washington, D.C. There, under a scorched statue missing half its face, was a name etched into steel. Colonel Mason Rord. Granger knelt. No speeches, no tears, just one whisper. "We carry the fire." Then he boarded the ship, and Earth prepared to strike first. The mission was never about peace. It was about pain. Wrath 1 wasn't a vessel of diplomacy. It was a floating vendetta. A hunter built from the remains of the very empire that tried to erase Earth, now turned back against them like a jagged piece of shrapnel plunged into open flesh. And at the helm was Tom Granger. He didn't wear a uniform. Didn't believe in ranks anymore. Everyone on board. Wrath 1 had already earned their place through blood, fire, or unrelenting defiance. Most were survivors from the ground invasions. Former factory workers, medics, even farmers turned killers. This was humanity's first interstellar retaliation, and they all understood the objective. Find the nearest Dominion outpost. Make it bleed. Leave behind a warning that could echo across stars. Granger stood on the bridge, boots planted on the black alloy floor, watching the void rush past the forward glass like a silent river of death. The ship moved through space using stolen Dominion propulsion, bending local gravity and riding quantum drift lanes, moving faster than light without disturbing it. Even the Empire never imagined humans would master it this fast. But that was their mistake. They thought humans were slow learners. They didn't understand. Humans are fast when they're furious. The target was designated Relay Station Threx 9. It sat in a dead sector, orbiting a dying star. Just another communication hub for the Dominion, relaying orders, intelligence, and updates to the outer colonies. It wasn't a fortress. It wasn't meant for war. It was infrastructure, logistics. And that's exactly why Granger picked it. Not because it was weak, because it was essential. You don't just kill the warrior. You cut out his tongue so the next one can't scream for help. The plan was simple. Wrath 1 would drop a squad of 12 via cloaked pods onto the station's outer shell. They'd cut their way inside, flood it with EMP grenades, and upload a virus, a code Tavik's apprentices had resurrected from the rogue AI labs before they were bombed. The virus didn't just disable systems, it erased identity, names, coordinates, history. The relay would forget every planet it had ever talked to, like it never existed, and then they'd leave behind a message, not one written in code, but in blood. The drop was clean. 12 pods launched in silence, riding the magnetic tail of a passing meteor. The station's sensors never saw them. Dominion tech was good, but it wasn't paranoid. That was a uniquely human strength. They landed, cut through the outer hull, entered the station, and unleashed hell. Dominion crew weren't soldiers. They were engineers, tech officers, analysts. They'd never fired a weapon in combat. When Granger's team swept through the corridors, their movements were clinical, brutal, and exact. The humans didn't ask questions. They didn't give orders. They executed. Granger moved like a machine, double-tapping everything that twitched. His pulse didn't rise. His breathing stayed level. He wasn't there to survive. He was there to send a message. Within 15 minutes, the relay was silent. Bodies floated in zero-G, eyes frozen wide with expressions of confusion rather than fear. None of them expected death. And that's what made it beautiful. At the core, the tech crew began uploading the virus. Granger watched the stream on his helmet visor. Thousands of Dominion nodes going dark, memory banks unraveling, pathways collapsing, like watching a god forget its own language. "Status?" he asked. 60%. The station's already blind. Push to 85, then prep the beacon. The beacon wasn't a device. It was a corpse. Specifically, the overseer they'd kept alive just long enough to extract everything Earth needed, then preserved in cryostasis for this exact purpose. They dragged the frozen body to the relay's main broadcast chamber, impaled it on a shard of Dominion alloy, and mounted a human flag, stitched together from battlefield scraps and blood, into its chest. Then they activated the chamber's holofeed. The entire sector would receive the signal. Every ship, every outpost, every corner of Dominion territory still listening. The transmission played for exactly 40 seconds. It showed Granger, standing under the dangling corpse of their overseer, holding his shotgun like a religious icon. His voice came low, clear, and stripped of mercy. "You came to erase us. You failed. Now we erase you. Tell your gods, your fleets, your dying stars, we're coming. And we're not interested in peace." He didn't wait for applause. He didn't wait at all. They detonated the station 5 minutes later, left nothing behind but plasma shadows and the silent echo of Earth's defiance. Back on Wrath 1, the crew sat around the central chamber, silent. They weren't celebrating. They were waiting to see who would come next. And sure enough, someone did. 3 days later, a Dominion hunter ship tracked their trail. Unlike the cruisers Earth had fought before, hunter ships were lean, intelligent, and built for single targets. They didn't fire warning shots. They hunted like predators, waiting, circling, pouncing. But this one made a mistake. It followed Earth's signal trail to the wreckage of Threx 9 and found a trap. Wrath 1 had dropped a secondary pod into the debris field, equipped with a decoy signature and a core packed with plutonium-enhanced kinetic charges. When the hunter ship moved in to investigate, the pod latched onto its hull like a parasite. 10 seconds later, it exploded. The hunter ship didn't just die, it disintegrated. Granger's message was clear. Follow us and die tired. Back on Earth, the galaxy was listening. The broadcast from the relay station had been intercepted by dozens of Dominion-linked species, some allies, some vassals, some parasites feeding off the order the Empire had enforced for millennia. They expected the usual pattern: conquest, suppression, subjugation. But Earth wasn't following that pattern. It wasn't conquering. It was waging a vendetta, and that made it unpredictable. Worse, contagious. Rebel cells started whispering about humanity. Minor species in Dominion territory began going dark, refusing to send shipments, faking signal interference. The fear wasn't just that humans were fighting. The fear was that humans were winning. On Wrath 1, Granger received a private transmission, coded, scrambled, nearly undetectable. Not from Earth, not from the Dominion, from a third party, an unidentified voice, genderless, cold. It said 4 words. "We are watching you." Then silence. Granger replayed it 3 times. Not for intel, for instinct. And each time he felt something deeper than fear. Not that someone was watching, but that something older had been awakened. Something that didn't belong to Earth, or the Dominion, something that had been waiting. And Earth had just rung the bell. The next mission was already being planned. Granger didn't know what sector, didn't care. He'd go wherever they sent him, because humanity had already made its choice. They weren't just defending anymore. They were infecting the galaxy with defiance. One blood-soaked message at a time. It started with whispers, tiny disruptions on distant outposts, delayed shipments, silence where there should have been orders. Lower-tier Dominion-aligned species, those too small to matter but too useful to lose, began to act strange. And the Empire noticed. But by the time they realized what was happening, the infection had already spread. The galaxy had caught a disease. They called it the human condition, not the biology, the behavior, defiance, rebellion, rage, all things Earth had never asked permission for. All things Earth had now made contagious. And now, across thousands of light years, broken species were looking up and asking the same question. If Earth stood against them, why can't we? Tom Granger didn't want to be a symbol. Symbols got worshipped, statues got built, and statues always got pulled down later. He wanted to stay in the fight, on the edge, out of the spotlight. But Earth had other plans. After the destruction of Relay Station Threx 9, his face was everywhere. Broadcasts showed him walking past Dominion corpses like a man strolling through a garden. Every surviving human resistance network beamed his voice to new listeners. They aren't gods. They aren't untouchable. They're bureaucrats with better ships. And Earth just slapped their teeth out. It wasn't propaganda. It was a spark. And sparks catch fire. In the Dreltha system, a species called the Karni had been slaves for 3 centuries, not physically enslaved, but economically broken. Their harvests were taken, their children conscripted, their leaders executed every 10 cycles to keep the rest obedient. They never questioned it. Until a half-broken Dominion broadcast replayed Granger's words on a hijacked feed. The Karni watched a human stand atop the corpse of an overseer, daring the galaxy to come find him. And something shifted. 3 days later, a Karni labor camp turned into a war zone. Dominion guards were overwhelmed with tools, digging spades, mining lasers, even sharpened bones. The uprising lasted 6 hours. The Dominion called it a viral anomaly, but other species called it hope. Director Novak sat in his shadowed bunker, watching the reports pour in. More than a dozen minor rebellions across outer Dominion space. Small species, forgotten worlds, but they were killing soldiers, blowing up supply routes, burning flags, and all of them mentioned one thing. We saw what the humans did. Novak wasn't celebrating. He saw what this meant. Granger had turned Earth into a myth, and myths were dangerous because they inspired belief, and belief brought consequences. On Wrath 1, the bridge had gone quiet. A message had come in, decoded manually, routed through Dominion black channels. Granger stared at it, eyes narrowing. It wasn't from Earth. It wasn't even human. It came from a sector known as the Hollow Belt, a dead zone the Dominion had quarantined for over 500 years. The message was short. 4 words. We remember your fire. Granger didn't know what it meant. But he felt the chill in his spine all the same. He turned to his tech lead, Yannick, a former drone pilot who now ran ship comms. Trace the signal, backtrack it, find out who remembers us. That's the thing, Janek replied, frowning. This signal's older than Wrath 1, maybe older than Earth's first satellite. Granger stared at the screen. What the hell is waking up out there? In the Ravik cluster, rebellion wasn't just ideological, it was bloody. The species there, the Felix, had been Dominion shock troops, conditioned for obedience, genetically enhanced for war, used to crush revolts on other planets. Now some of them were revolting, against their masters, against each other, because one of them, an Alpha commander, had intercepted a clip of Granger's broadcast. And for the first time in his engineered life, he hesitated during an execution. He let the prisoner live. Later, he killed his Dominion handler, and his defection was recorded. Shared. By the time the Dominion realized what was happening, over 200 Felix had joined his cause. They wore human flag emblems on their chest plates, crude copies stitched from flak jackets and blood-soaked cloth. They called themselves the Scars of Earth. The Empire responded fast. They couldn't afford to lose psychological ground. So they broadcasted a counter-message, a silent feed showing the execution of 77 rebel Karni. No sound, just the image of their bodies, one after another, dropped into a gravity well. A warning. But it was too late, because humanity's message wasn't about survival, it was about rage, and the galaxy had been starving for rage. Granger sat in Wrath 1's war room with his top team, Janek, Reiko, Ground Ops, and Tavares, Strategy. Maps floated in holograms above the table, showing Dominion patrol paths, potential weak systems, intercepted comms. The more we hit, Reiko said, the more they start collapsing from the inside, their outer rims in chaos. They'll pull in, Tavares added, abandon their far territories, start guarding their heart. Good, Granger said. Let them suffocate in their own empire. But Janek leaned forward. Something's off. What? Granger asked. Janek pulled up an intercepted feed. Dominion's not just reacting to us. They're being pressured from above. Above? Something's watching them, something they're afraid of. They've started deleting entire archive vaults, burning old data. Granger frowned. Covering their tracks. Yeah. Not from us, from something older. Whatever it is, it's coming. Fast. Back on Earth, Director Novak met with a select few in the Iron Council. He didn't mince words. The rebellions we've sparked, if we don't get ahead of them, they'll turn into something worse. Worse than a galactic war? Someone scoffed. Yes, Novak replied coldly. A war without us in charge. Earth had lit the fire, but now others wanted to claim it. If the galaxy united behind Earth, humanity would lead a revolution. But if it fractured, then Earth would just be the first matchstick. And no one remembers the matchstick when the house burns down. In the shadows of Dominion space, a new enemy watched. Not part of the Empire, not aligned with Earth. Older, quieter, patient. The ones who sent that cryptic message. We remember your fire. They had a name. One long buried, the Valenth. They were not conquerors. They were eradicators. A long dormant civilization that waited for disorder, waited for signs of galactic chaos. And now they'd seen the signal. They hadn't forgotten Earth. They'd simply been waiting for Earth to matter. And now, it did. On Wrath 1, another message came in. Same signal, different words. Fire begets fire. You opened the door. Now we return. Granger stared at the screen. Who the hell are these people? No one answered, because Earth was no longer in control of the war it had started. It had unleashed something ancient. And now the galaxy was listening. Not to the Dominion, not to the rebels, not even to Granger, but to the silence between signals, where something massive was waking up. and it wasn't coming to negotiate. The Valenth weren't a rumor anymore. Their signals came in short bursts, always the same bandwidth, always from dead sectors long abandoned by the Dominion. Their language wasn't fully translatable, but Earth's black labs worked overtime, decoding fragments with the remnants of Tavik's cracked Dominion data cores. The messages weren't threats, they were warnings. We are not your enemy, but you have made us necessary. The wound has reopened. The cycle returns. Each one brought more confusion than clarity. Granger didn't trust them, not because they were mysterious, but because they were interested, and nothing that watched this long without acting had good intentions. Back on Earth, Director Novak stood in the Iron Council's war chamber. Massive digital screens showed dozens of Dominion systems flickering offline. Pirate feeds. Black market networks, rebel signals. It all looked like progress, but Novak saw the real pattern. Collapse. This isn't a war anymore, he said. It's a gravitational pull. We started a fire. Now the galaxy is bending around it. One of the council members frowned. That's what we wanted. We wanted chaos. We wanted rebellion, not a vacuum. Novak turned to a side panel and pulled up a grainy transmission. Dozens of ships, non-Dominion, non-human, warping into unguarded systems. No flags, no alliances, just scavengers. Look at them, picking apart the Dominion's corpse before it's dead. These aren't rebels. They're opportunists, mercs, syndicates, raiders. They're not fighting for freedom. He paused. They're fighting for territory. And Earth was now the symbol pinned to every faction's chest, whether Earth wanted it or not. On Wrath 1, Granger was tracking 3 wars at once. 1. The original war with the Dominion. 2. The spreading uprisings inspired by Earth. 3. The rising interest of the Valenth, whatever they were. His crew had changed, hardened. Some of them had started wearing scars of Earth emblems like trophies. Reiko's left eye was cybernetic now, after she took shrapnel during a failed hit-and-run on a Dominion research moon. They didn't talk about victories anymore. They talked about targets. Next jump point is Sector H11, Janek reported. Abandoned Dominion trade hub. Could be a resupply cache or another ghost shell. We go in hard, Granger said. 0 negotiation, no survivors. Even if they're civilians? Granger looked up, voice like gravel. We stopped having civilians the moment they watched Earth burn and did nothing. No one argued. Not because they agreed, but because Granger had become the face of survival, and survival didn't care about sentiment. They jumped into H11 at 0300 shipboard time. The station looked dead. No power, no movement. But Janek's scanners picked up life signs, 16 of them, weak, scattered, breathing oxygen, not Dominion readings. Granger ordered the breach. 3 squads dropped in through the maintenance shafts. What they found wasn't an ambush. It was a warning. 16 bodies, torn apart, not by plasma, by something sharp. Steel, bone, teeth. Some had their skulls drilled into. Others had implants melted right inside their heads. On the walls, words had been carved into the metal. The same phrase, over and over. They remember. They remember. They remember. Janek's voice trembled through the comms. These weren't killed by the Dominion. No, Granger muttered. This is something else. Something older. They left the station in flames. Granger sent no transmission, because if someone was watching, he didn't want to show fear, even if his gut twisted with it. The next signal from the Valenth was direct, not intercepted, addressed to Earth. You have pierced the veil. Your defiance is a signal. Others will come, some to kneel, some to devour. We are the scalpel. We do not conquer. We remove infection. Earth's top minds, what remained of them, debated what the message meant. Was it philosophical, literal, biological? One interpretation made Novak uneasy. "They're not the predators. They're the cleaners." As if the Dominion had been a dam holding something worse back, and humanity had just blown the dam open. Granger received a new mission, one not from Earth, but from the Karnai Rebellion. They'd seized a listening post in the outer fringe and found something buried in the databanks, coordinates to a Dominion archive world. A place where ancient data was stored, data even the Dominion had forgotten. They wiped their records, the Karnai rebel leader explained, but not before backing them up, deep beneath the surface, buried in vaults with quantum locks. If you want to understand the Valenth, that's where the truth is. Granger didn't hesitate. Send the coordinates. The planet was called Osseran Prime, or it had been, before being scorched during a Dominion civil purge nearly 2,000 years ago. The atmosphere was toxic. Surface temperature, 310 Celsius. Not breathable. Not survivable without full environmental suits. Wrath 1 hovered in the upper stratosphere. Granger and a fire team of 8 dropped in with adaptive armor and seismic drills. Their goal? Breach the vaults, extract data, leave before the Valenth, or whatever else was watching, noticed. They didn't get that luxury. By the time they cracked the outer shell of the vault, they weren't alone. Motion trackers lit up. But it wasn't Dominion. It was something new, something fast. The first one hit them like a whisper, barely a shimmer of motion, slicing through Sergeant Doran's chest like tissue paper. He fell without a sound. The second took down 2 more. Granger fired blind, spraying molten slugs into the dark. One of the figures dropped, screaming in a voice that didn't sound mechanical or organic. Something in between. Reiko activated a light flare, and they saw it. Tall, thin. Skin like woven black glass. No eyes, no mouth. It didn't bleed, it cracked, like broken porcelain over moving light. Granger's voice cut through the chaos. "Extract the core! Leave the rest! Move!" They dragged the data drive out of the vault. 2 more died on the retreat. Granger barely made it to the evac point, dragging Reiko with one arm, her leg mangled. As they lifted off, the creatures didn't chase. They just stood at the vault's entrance, watching, silent, waiting. Back on Wrath 1, the data was decoded in sections, and what it revealed made everyone in the room go still. The Valenth had been there before. Not in myth. In history. Millions of years ago, they'd wiped out over 12 sentient civilizations. Each time, after a major empire fell into chaos. Each time, once rebellion outpaced control. They came not to conquer, but to reset. A built-in correction. A fail-safe. And now, Earth had triggered them. Granger stood at the viewport, watching the stars drift. Reiko, stitched and limping, joined him. "We thought we were the underdogs," she said. "We thought we were just punching back." Granger didn't respond. She looked at him. "So, what now?" His voice was low, hollow. "We finish what we started. Not because we'll win, but because we lit the fire. And if we burn, we make damn sure the galaxy remembers why." The Valenth arrived without warning. They didn't invade. They didn't negotiate. They descended. Across 6 systems in Dominion space, Valenth craft appeared in perfect formation, each one shaped like a spindle of fractured black light, endlessly shifting, moving in ways that defied physics. No thrusters, no visible propulsion, just presence. Their ships didn't fire. They didn't need to. Anything that resisted was simply undone. Whole Dominion outposts collapsed into silence. Cities crumbled in seconds, not from force, but from structural erasure, as if time itself forgot the buildings had ever been there. Every species that watched saw the same thing. Power without politics. death without rage, and every rebellion sparked by Earth froze, because they realized the same truth Earth had finally accepted. The Valenth didn't kill out of hatred. They killed like a law of nature, and nature doesn't negotiate. Wrath 1 hovered in the gravity pocket of an abandoned moon near the Vel sector. Beyond its broken horizon, 5 Valenth vessels floated in silence, miles long, casting no shadow, absorbing light like tombstones of a forgotten god. Granger stood on the bridge, helmet in hand, jaw locked. "They're not reacting to hails?" Janek asked. "They don't need to," Granger replied. "They're here to clean up the mess." "Us," Reiko said flatly. "All of us. Every race that defied the system, started a war, cracked the balance." She trailed off, because they all knew the truth. Earth had been the fuse, and now the Valenth were the firestorm that followed. The Iron Council on Earth went dark. Director Novak and the last remaining defense heads disappeared into underground bunkers. Emergency transmissions were sent to every allied rebel species. Fall back, hide, scatter, do not engage. But it was too late for warnings, because the Valenth didn't need a reason, they only needed motion. One Scars of Earth rebel fleet attempted a preemptive strike. 42 ships jumped to a neutral system and opened fire on a dormant Valenth structure orbiting a dead star. The star imploded within minutes. The ships weren't destroyed. They simply ceased to be. Every life form aboard was erased from existence. No records, no remains, just nothing. A warning. Granger watched the data come in, teeth clenched so tight his jaw hurt. "What do we do?" Reiko asked, voice quiet. "Run?" "Where?" She didn't answer, because there was nowhere. The Dominion had been Earth's executioner. But the Valenth, they were its judge. And then came the final signal. Not intercepted, not decoded, given. A direct transmission to Earth, Wrath 1, and every rebel-aligned ship still alive. 6 words. "You must explain your defiance." Not a threat, a summons. Granger turned to Janek. "Patch me through." "To what?" "All of them. That's half the quadrant. I said patch me through." Janek hesitated, then nodded. Granger stood in front of the Command Corps' hollow emitter. No speech, no notes, just raw voice, broadcast in every known language, including Dominion dialects. "You asked for an explanation. You want to know why Earth defied the order. It's simple. Because we were supposed to die. We were supposed to go extinct, be forgotten, fall under your systems and your silence. But we didn't. We bled. We broke. We turned our cities into battlefields and our farmers into soldiers. And when your empires demanded submission, we gave them smoke and blood." He paused. "You call us a contagion. You're not wrong. Because what we gave the galaxy wasn't war. It was the idea that you don't have to kneel. That even the smallest voice can scream loud enough to shake stars. So if you've come to erase us, do it. But know this," his voice dropped. "We won't beg. We won't bow. We'll burn if we have to. And in our ashes, someone else will rise. Because you can erase a world, but you can't erase an idea." The signal cut. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was reckoning. The Valenth responded. Not with war, with presence. One ship, the largest, drifted slowly toward Wrath 1's coordinates. It didn't fire. It didn't signal. It simply appeared. Time warped around it. Granger felt his nose bleed. Reiko dropped to one knee. Alarms screamed across the bridge. Reality bending. Then the voice came, not spoken, not audible, inside, a presence in their minds. "You are correct. Defiance cannot be deleted, but infection must still be contained. You are the anomaly. You are the storm born of ash. And so you must choose eradication or exile. The choice wasn't metaphorical. Either Earth would be destroyed or Earth would be removed, cut from the star lanes, isolated from the rest of the galaxy, quarantined forever in a locked sector. Granger's jaw tightened. And if we fight? Then you teach others to scream louder. Then we return again, until silence reigns. He didn't answer immediately. He looked to Reiko, to Yannick, to the empty seats of those already lost. Then he turned back to the dark, and gave the only answer Earth had left. Exile us. But no, we'll never forget. And if anyone else rises, he stepped forward. We'll show them how. Earth was cut off. Overnight, all jump gates surrounding the Sol system collapsed. Every wormhole closed, every star lane twisted. The Valenth sealed the sector like a sarcophagus. And just like that, Earth was alone. Again. Years passed. The galaxy stabilized, sort of. The Dominion limped into irrelevance. The Valenth faded back into legend. Rebellion cooled. But the idea survived. Quietly. Underground. Whispered between traders, passed through encoded songs, hidden in stories told to children by parents who remembered what fire looked like. There was a world that said no. There were people who bled to be free. And one day, they might return. On a quiet mountaintop in what used to be Colorado, an old man walked alone. Tom Granger had scars in his lungs now, couldn't walk far, didn't talk much. The war had burned him, chewed him, spit him back out. But he was still here, still watching the stars, even if they couldn't see him anymore. Reiko visited once a year, brought him stories, rumors, songs from rogue broadcasts, proof that somewhere out there the spark still lived. And sometimes, late at night, Granger would whisper to himself, "We're the fire they'll never put out." And in the darkness above, the stars remembered.